Well, hello, Kurtis, and hey, welcome to the backyard tabletop. Look, the people just got here, man.
Whoa, hi.
It's been so long, but they made it.
Yeah.
Actually, hasn't really been so long for them, I guess. It's been the average amount of time.
Who are you? I don't recognize them.
I don't know. I don't recognize them either, but welcome to the backyard tabletop. My name is Jacob.
My name's Kurtis. Do we do that
This
in the
has got
beginning?
to be...
We do that in the beginning.
I think we do say our names in the beginning.
I'm tired.
Kurtis has been working. He's a working boy. He's a working boy. We're changing up our recording time a little bit, so we'll see how things go. But we're so glad that you have joined us today. This is a podcast that is really just kind of like a time that Kurtis and I can hang out together and talk about one of our favorite things of dungeons, with that being Dungeons and Dragons.
I would say it's my favorite thing.
And then also put it online. It's your favorite thing? Like, thing as in, like, non-person, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like.
Yes. Yeah.
Favorite thing as in, like, an object.
Yes. Joelle.
Our wives listen to this show.
You were not a thing.
Oh dear, this has got to be the craziest one yet. Yeah, Kurtis and I like to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. We're gonna jump into something today, and then after, like, the last half of this podcast is talking about our adventures that we go through in the game of D&D. And Kurtis will be jumping into his story time today. So we'll see what's going on in Corvosa. But first, something kind of exciting happened in the D&D community recently. I mean, not super exciting, like Wizards of the Coast releases stuff from time to time. But something that was really cool that we thought would be really cool that we talk about today was a new adventure that was released.
Yeah.
Minds of Phandelver was released.
Re-released.
The reason why re-released. The reason why I think we were excited about this is, Kurtis, you have ran the original twice, correct? Minds of Phandelver you've ran through twice? Or was it just once?
I think just once. I've run Minds of Phandelver once, and then I also ran the other starter pack, the Icefire
Oh, that's
Peak.
right. That's right. Icefire Peak, yes, which I was in both of those.
Yes.
But we loved Lost Minds of Phandelver. It's so good. It's near and dear because it was the first adventure we all ran together. It was our first thing.
It's such a quintessential, like, D&D, just a bunch of randos getting caught up in a crazy plot and becoming heroes. Like, it's a great story.
Yeah, and it was also your first adventure that you dungeon mastered, correct?
Yeah, it was the first time I ever DM'd, and it was great. And nothing quite beats that feeling of, ooh, I'm starting a new campaign. It's all coming together. I'm talking to the players. So I'm doing this. I'm doing that. And I'm saying that because I actually am. I'm going to run this book again. I've started getting some people together to maybe do it.
Prep.
So
that's so cool.
Yeah. So I've been flipping through the pages and figuring stuff out. So I'm very excited about it.
Yes. And so we're just going to kind of talk about our first impression. Now, we have not. Kurtis said you have almost gotten all the way through it, reading it, right?
Yeah, as like not like a full-fledged read every line, every page, but but reading through the story and getting a general idea of the creatures and the characters and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I haven't got that far either. So it's just first impressions, but I've read the summaries and read kind of like what this chapter is about, and it's just been, so maybe some minor spoilers. I don't know. I don't think this will be a spoilers. Maybe.
If there's anyone watching this that is going to be in my game, Joelle and Dip, maybe. Just
Kurtis is watching.
Skip to story time. Skip to story time.
So there may be some light spoilers here. Kurtis may talk about some things. But for the most part, it's just first impressions. This completely makes sense from just a marketing place of like, one, this adventure hasn't been like re-released. It came out like 7 years ago was the original one. And they have revamped it to come out conveniently like a month after Baldur's Gate 3, and it's has to do with some Mind Flayer villains that will come out later in the book. So that's all like that's part of the marketing. So I don't think that's really a spoiler.
And that's part of the marketing?
Oh yeah.
I didn't know it had anything to do with Mind Flayers until I read the book.
Oh really? Okay.
No idea.
I watched a video with the writers, so maybe they did say spoilers. I watched a video on D&D Beyond or the Wizards YouTube.
Was it from the actual? It was actually from Wizards. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Well, cool. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's why I was kind of like, I think that's spoilers because judging by the book cover and stuff like that, it doesn't seem like it has anything to do with.
I think it's probably one of those things that like a dungeon master wouldn't be maybe necessarily upfront. I think they do say like, hey, if your players are not into the Mind Flayer parasite type stuff, some body horror and stuff like that, this is not the adventure to go through it. So you probably need to do the classic of, hey, this is in the adventure. Does anyone have problems with this type of storytelling? But if you're trying to keep it a secret, then maybe it's not the best.
Because there are for sure moments of like your character could get infected, start changing, start having things happen to them, and that can be pretty upsetting for a lot of people.
Not not necessarily for every table, but for the most part, I think this is really a great step at just marketing. I mean, it totally makes sense to just come off the success that was Baldur's Gate 3, and now they're releasing an adventure that will feature some heavily Mind Flayer stuff and be different. I think from what little I've read and have seen, it's not the same, obviously not the same story of Baldur's Gate. It just deals with the same villain.
It's a similar feel to Baldur's Gate. It's not like a 1-for-1 copy, but it's definitely a similar, because it's Mind Flayers. They're always doing the same thing. But I mean, Baldur's Gate has a pretty cool twist, which I won't spoil here. But the book, I mean, it's kind of typical Mind Flayer stuff, which we haven't seen much in any of the 5e books. So that's pretty exciting.
Which is kind of cool.
So I think they were just kind of jumping on. They were just kind of jumping on that aberration, and I think Mind Flayer wagon that was going around.
Exactly. Like, feel similar from, like, especially if you are new to the D&D community or game, you got introduced to the video game and you're like, oh, this is really cool. And a local group, or you have some friends that are like, hey, this has the same similar themes as the video game. So it's easier maybe to jump into that. And it's like, ooh, Mind Flayers, I love the video game. Let's see what that's all about. Yeah. Super cool. And exactly what you said. It's not, hasn't really been explored. So there is some different aspects about the Mind Flayers that kind of come out in this book that are
there's a lot of stuff that they kind of do in this book that hasn't been done for a long time. Like, since 3rd edition, we haven't looked into any of these types of things. Like, so as kind of a general overview, the official title is Phandelver and Below, the Shattered Obelisk.
Oh yeah, I probably should have. Yeah,
but
thank you.
But I mean, it's interesting that they say that, like, Phandelver and Below, because it literally the first half of the book is just Lost Mines of Phandelver revamped. You know how they kind of did a revamp of Curse of Strahd not too long ago, a few years back. It kind of feels like that.
They spelled it funny too.
Yes, it kind of feels like that, but with Lost Mines of Phandelver. Like, it's it brings it forward. So there's been power creep in in player characters since Phandelver started. If you tried to do the original Phandelver right now with players who've been playing for a couple years with current classes, they would wipe the floor with just about every encounter.
Even just current classes, even if you're new, current classes are pretty powerful. Yeah.
So they kind of updated it. It feels a little more challenging than the original one did, to me at least. It's still good, and it's still good enough to feel like it could be a good intro, especially like the first half of the book. Like it's still just Lost Mines of Phandelver. It's a very similar story. They just start alluding to maybe there's something bigger going on other than the story of Phandelver and all of that kind of stuff. And then you don't really get into any of those major story beats until chapter 5.
Yeah. Which I think they did a great job in kind of doing, like, the original one still gets you to level 5. Like, it gets you from level 1 to level 5. And then the last half that kind of introduces the new stuff is, like, from level 5 to level 12, which
5
is...
to 12, yeah.
You know, very D&D, like Wizards of the Coast. I don't think really goes beyond level 12 from what I understand. But
1 or 3 to 12 is pretty much their sweet spot for sure.
Their sweet spot, yeah.
Yeah, that is actually an interesting point. They really only ever do like mini adventures past level 12. Like all the adventures in like Yawning Portal and stuff like that. Like those are the only things that ever really go past level 12 in a lot of their adventures.
5e really has not been, I think as far as I'm aware, like third party will go beyond level 12 quite a bit, but Wizards for the most part, they stick in that 1 to 12.
And there's all,
I mean, that's, go for it.
There's something that we don't really talk about a lot, which is Adventurers Guild.
That's true.
And that, there's hundreds of adventures through Adventurers Guild that are technically official. They're just authored by other people, but they're still endorsed by Dungeons and Dragons to be a Adventurers Guild story and adventure. There's plenty of those that go well beyond level 12.
That's fair. Maybe I need to look those up.
Yeah, there's a lot of I've gotten a lot of great one-shot ideas through Adventurers Guild.
Very cool.
So that's kind of how it is. It's like the first half is Lost Mines of Phandelver, revamped, like I said, with a few extra story beats, kind of a bumped up difficulty just a little bit. It still doesn't feel like it's like now it's hard. It's just updated to feel
updated,
constant.
New. Yeah, and we've definitely talked about that. Like the power creep is definitely becoming a thing, and I honestly love like the, I don't know if this is a spoiler, but the new goblin type stuff is really cool. I love the psionic stuff kind of coming into play. I thought that was really creative and way to kind of amp up goblins to be a little bit more for when you start getting that higher level, it doesn't happen right away from what I understand.
And again, you hear about them, like if you ever, from what I've read, this is, we've said spoilers like 8 times. If you ever like interrogate any of the goblins from Cragmaw or anything like that, they'll talk about how every once in a while the boss sends, whoever the boss is, sends weird goblins on raids with them, and they do crazy stuff, and the regular goblins are kind of scared of them, and then once the raid is over, they just go away. They don't like help them bring the raid back or anything.
Oh,
they
that's
just
fun.
Disappear.
That's very fun. Okay.
And so but you don't see any of those goblins until at least chapter 5.
Right.
So past the Phandelver story is already finished. So that's really cool too, because again, it's not like they just took Phandelver and stuck it in the front and then went, okay, and then after that you can also do this. It's actually connected, and they've changed things so that it feels like it's alluding to bigger things happening that you eventually run into.
A bigger plan at play. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. Yeah. So honestly, first impressions, I was just like, this sounds really cool. I love all the updated stuff. And there's just also nostalgia that hit me as well, because I looked at the first map, which is like the quintessential of like understanding what a D&D dungeon should kind of feel like. It's the class, like that is kind of like, I wouldn't necessarily say the perfect like dungeon, but it's just like the most standard perfect dungeon, if that makes sense. There's things happening that can going on that the players can kind of choose what to do. Mm-hmm. There's a little feud going on, so the players could intervene with that. They could go in and just kill everyone if they wanted to, which would be difficult, but it makes it a little bit easier if you are, changing it up a little bit.
There's a couple.
There's this little side room.
I was just going to say, there's a couple side rooms that are, you don't have to go in there ever. But if you do, you might find some interesting things or some ways around problems that you run into later, Mm-hmm. Yeah,
there's a trap that doesn't kill everyone, but is just a little creative and just can like...
I do like that too. Again, classic Phandelver thing is like after the initial ambush when you're trying to find the goblin hideout, and you're going through the woods, it puts two traps back to back that if they were the same trap together would probably kill a level 1 person. But since they put them back to back, the first one does almost nothing. It's just a string up trap that grabs you by your ankles. And if you're too hasty in cutting yourself down, you take some falling damage. No big deal. But then now I know there's traps. So now I'm going to pay attention and check for traps. And then the trap that's actually dangerous and could cause some real problems comes after that, but you're looking for it. And so they kind of teach you in that way that,
exactly.
Hey, this is a thing that can happen, so you need to be careful. And then they throw another one right at you, and it feels good when you're like, oh, I noticed this one. Awesome. Yeah.
100%. 100%. Yeah. So it's definitely still a great, at least the beginning of it, a great adventure to like introduce players to. They still have that, definitely still has that vibe that can carry on. And then if you are ready to venture forth, with this party and everyone seems to be liking it, to get to higher levels and experience that, is also very nice as well. So I think this was just a great thing that like, I was, when I first heard about this, like back in July or whatever, when they announced it, I was like, oh, that's so cool. I think I was hoping for like maybe a subclass or two to come out with this, but I think that's my only really complaint about it. But it is supposed to be an adventure.
It's just an adventure.
It's not.
Yeah. There's a few. There's a lot of cool new monsters, and some really really cool variants of monsters that already exist.
Okay. That I didn't know. I knew there was new like.
There's new types of goblins that are kind of variants of regular goblins, but then they also introduce like some things like boss versions or like general versions of certain creatures, as well as like mutated versions of other monsters and things like that. Towards the latter half, there's a huge focus on the far realms and aberrations, and very like cosmic horror type stuff. Which is, I love that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of really interesting tables for like, mind sickness and transformations and fun stuff like that. Yeah, a lot of cool stuff. As well as like in 5e, we've had almost zero exposure to like the far realms.
Right.
That plane that's just, it's where aberrations come from. That's all we know, right? It's like, it's if you have a great old one patron, they're in the far realms somewhere. That's all tentacles and but
creepy weird madness. Yeah.
But there's a very high focus on that, and you even travel there in this campaign, which that's
super cool.
As a player, I didn't even think that was possible. Like as a DM, I didn't think
so
that was
cool.
a thing, and I did a little bit of research on it, and it hasn't been done since third edition, really.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, so super cool. I'm really excited to see like a focus on that, and they talk about like how it affects you just being there and stuff like that in a way that hasn't really been looked into in a long time. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, like so that was what I was gonna definitely agree with you, because the monster variants seem to be very cool. I'm glad that they're giving us some more monsters. The magic items also seem really cool. A lot of the new magic items are pretty fun too. That kind of carry that same vibe.
I haven't looked into the magic items much actually.
Yeah, super fun. But with that said, very cool. We're very excited. So here on the Backyard Tabletop here, and probably the next, however long we want to take, there's no real timeline. We're gonna probably be starting out with talking about like maybe chapter 1. We'll go into like probably some details, and then the following one will be chapter 2, et cetera, et cetera.
What I would actually really like to do is do like a compare and contrast with the original Phandelver. Just kind of look into some of the differences and changes and how they've updated it a little bit. I've already seen a couple people do some like really short YouTube videos on that, on just like the first dungeon and how it's a little different. I would really like to look into some of that stuff, because that's what interests me, seeing the actual differences.
I think we'll definitely do that. We may do some fun comparisons and just talking about our general feedback, what we like, what we don't like, and probably just taking it a chapter at a time, maybe half chapter, maybe 2. I don't know. We'll see, but stay tuned for that.
And again, I'm gonna start running it possibly having a session 0 as early as this weekend.
Ooh, very cool.
Kind of depending on how quick people get back to me about stuff. So
4 or 5 players?
4 players.
4 players.
Keeping it kind of small. And we might only play like twice a month. It's one of those things where some of us already have another game going, so it's just kind of a background game. We'll see. But I'm very excited to run it, because I haven't run an actual full-length campaign in a while. So there really is just something fun about starting a campaign. yeah.
So there it's just like there's like thinking of ideas, and then as a DM just doing the groundwork and the preparation. How are the characters going to interact? What's connected? Et cetera, et cetera. It's great.
Yeah, man.
Well, very cool. So we are definitely going to be reviewing more of that, and Kurtis may be actually playing it. So we'll be like, hey, this is what my players did. And they all died.
Yep. So anytime we are talking about the book, I will state it beforehand so that people know because people I'm running it for do watch this. So I will have to let them know.
So it's like, shoot, we're going to miss out on all our viewership. Darn it.
No, we'll still tell them to watch story time. No. Story time's
it's like, so at least we'll still get that revenue for the last half.
That revenue. Yeah, okay.
Okay, bud. Oh, man. Well, thank you so much, Kurtis. That super fun. Look forward to that. I really do think this is going to be a fun adventure. Honestly, it's been a while since I've just read through an adventure. So it's going to be really fun. Yeah. Well, Kurtis, are you ready to jump into Korvosa? Yes. So just if this is your first time hearing this portion, or just like first podcast or something class, Kurtis's group goes through a Pathfinder module called The Curse of the Crimson Throne. Thank you, Kurtis, for covering that soda. We are definitely not sponsored by them, unfortunately. That's what we're gonna make it.
Yes,
we get sponsored by Dr. Pepper. That's when we officially have made it.
That's my dream. That's the dream. Been fighting for him all my life. Everyone's like Coke. I'm like Dr. Pepper all my life.
We won't accept any other sponsorship from anyone. It just has to be Dr. Pepper. That's the one we're waiting for.
That's the goal. That's it. No substitutes. So last we left off, the Trouble Seekers in Korvosa had taken a trip to Old Korvosa, the sort of original founding point of the city. It's kind of a separate little island off in the river from the main city. After it had been kind of quarantined, in order to kind of go over there and explore some things, we found an alleyway with a weird toy shop that had vampires in its basement.
Yes.
We found out that I do have a couple of small dips notes. I'll go over them. I'll go over them in my preview here. We found a group of gray maidens who are apparently the queen's personal military force.
Yeah,
military police, basically.
Eviscerated like 100 people in the matter of like 10 seconds or whatever.
And my first note is actually that oh man, I've been chatting so much with Dip today about his possible character, so I'm gonna just scroll for a second.
Some scrolling.
There were actually more Gray Maidens than I thought. I think I said there were like 2 or 3. There were 6. So not quite as impressive as I was making it, as it was in my head. In my head, it was like 3 Gray Maidens in like a phalanx, just like whoosh, 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 we're just slashing like 300 or something.
Okay.
It was 6. Still impressive. Very
still
impressive.
Pretty insane.
And they still gave off an air of just being very practiced and very good at working together.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
Insane.
What else. And then we moved on to kind of checking out the rest of Old Korvosa to see if we could find any other things. We stopped by Vincarlo Orsini's house. He was the rapier guy who we all think is Blackjack. There wasn't anything there. We couldn't find any trace of him. And then we went to...
He's still gone.
Okay. He's in hiding somewhere. We don't know if he's booked it or if he's just underground or what.
V for Vendetta, he was just underground, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And then, or maybe he just has a bat cave. Who knows?
Remember the 5th.
He has a Sturge cave. Sturge Man. That's a character idea.
Okay.
And then we went to Eel's End to check to see, because Cal was like, the Undercity never stops moving for anything. So they're probably still up and working, and we can get some info there. Apparently, the sickness is bad enough. Eel's End was just completely vacant.
Oh dear. Okay.
And we found out that the guy who was like running it was killed by his own creatures. So the thing with that quickly was that I did forget to mention that as we were going through Eel's End, and we found the like Shiver production line room. I think when I retold it, I was just like, Hal was like, yeah, no big deal. And like kept walking, just taking note of it for later.
You just turned Morty from Rick and Morty.
Whatever. No, but that, I forgot to mention that he was kind of aching a little bit. Especially like being in the presence of all this stuff. And he tried to invisible mage hand a bottle over to him as they all kind of turned around and kept walking. He tried to like make it trail behind him and like hop into his bag.
Okay.
But Kit saw it immediately with her passive perception because I rolled terribly on a sleight of hand check. And she just like swatted it out of the air and was like, no. It just kept going. It was such a moment of like shame for Cal, just like a cat being like trying to like pull something closer off the edge, and you're just like, no. That's so funny. It was very funny.
Wow,
but
that's hilarious.
After checking out Eel's End, we decided, okay, good enough, we're gonna leave. So we got out of Old Korvosa and headed back into the main city, where again we went back home, rested, and Cal did send his familiar to go snatch a couple bottles. I think she got either one or two for him. But in any case, after that, like I said before, we all talked about, okay, what are we going to do next? We've kind of got 3 avenues of searching here. Mm-hmm. So, since it's kind of the closest place to us, and also seems kind of like one of the weirdest things happening, we decided to investigate why the Temple of Asmodeus, who is a devil lord god, in Pathfinder, just as he is in 5e. Pretty similar characters in the two worlds.
He is a devil instead of a demon.
Asmodeus is a devil in 5e too.
Oh yeah. I think in D&D he's like the ruler. Is he?
Yeah, he's the ruler of the Hells.
Pathfinder too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay.
So there's a temple to him. And the main reason for that, I think, is that Korvosa is, again, kind of a Chelaxian settlement in a way.
Okay.
Now it's Chelaxians, Varisians, Shwanti, kind of a mix. But it was Chelaxians that like came and settled it on Shwanti land.
Right.
And Chelaxians are kind of like diabolists. They're known for being like people that summon and make deals with devils and use them to do their bidding and stuff like that. And so Asmodeus worship is very common for Chelaxians. Okay. So that's why there's kind of a big Asmodeus temple here, because it's kind of the thing. Yeah.
Interesting.
But the interesting thing is the temple's not like constantly coming up with plots to rule the city. They tend to actually do good for the city and do things here that benefit the people. Because, it's still lawful, even if it is evil. They're still lawful. The flow of society and people making contracts and deals and the city running as it should be is what they strive for. So it's not like there's this weird bag of cultists over in the corner constantly doing awful stuff.
That's true.
They're generally still a boon to the city in general, even if it's a little bit taboo to a lot of people that like aren't used to that.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Like, because otherwise, it's like, if you think about it, otherwise, like, you'd have city guard there all the time.
Yeah.
No, don't go in here. You will like,
and
I feel like it would be one of the, like, because this was kind of the same thing. I mean, in Baldur's Gate 3, that might be a little spoilers. When you get to the Temple of Umberlee, that was kind of a surprise to me, is that those people weren't just like, because Umberlee's a chaotic evil god, but those people aren't chaotic evil. They're not running around killing people. They have like an order in the temple, right? And they worship Umberlee to keep like hurricanes coming in and stuff like that. Like, it's more of like a worship to prevent her from wiping out people type of thing. So it's interesting. Yeah.
Well, and that's a very Umberlee thing, is like, we worship her to sate her so that she doesn't just kill us all. Yeah,
right, exactly. But that was just an example. Like, it makes sense for sure that even though the god, the patron being worshipped is evil, it doesn't necessarily mean the temple itself is here doing. It's like, maybe behind closed doors they may be doing some evil stuff, but not like to the general public. No, that makes sense.
And Yeah. So, and the Temple of Asmodeus are known for being like staunch supporters and like people that support the crown, essentially.
Gotcha. Okay.
Like very vehemently. Anyway, so we go to this temple because for some reason they are taking blood donations from the general populace. We don't really know why. It seems kind of strange. They've never really done this before, as far as we can remember. I do remember there being some kind of history check that I made. I'm going to have to check with Dip on this about the Temple of Asmodeus. There was some kind of thing that happened like a lot of years back in Corvosa, like way before any of this was happening with the temple. I'm going to have to check with Dip about that. But not super relevant to this situation. But they're like taking, not like forcefully taking, but accepting and advertising that they need blood donations. And so we're like, okay, does this have anything to do with the sickness? Is this them just trying to do some sort of, big spell thing that they're trying to cure people or something like that? Are they just taking people's blood and summoning devils? Like, what's going on here?
Did they read the adventure path and wanted to try and fit in with the crimson theme going on?
Yeah. So we go to the temple. We head inside. Don't really get in. There's no trouble or anything. And this temple is even also doing, lesser restorations for people, just like all the other temples are. They're still helping the city just as much as any of the other temples. But we go in and we ask them about the donations. And I think one or two of us roll some pretty good persuasion checks to get them to kind of like open up a little bit about why they're doing it and who they're doing it for. Originally what they tell us, I believe, is just that they're trying to do some blood donations so that they can get to the bottom of this sickness and try and cure it. And then we get them to admit to us that it is a decree by the queen that they've been given to do this.
And so Cal is just like, I knew it.
Yeah. So the queen has told the Church of Asmodeus to start taking blood donations, and they are giving these blood donations to the doctors. Or at least working with them in it.
The doctors being the people that are going around that are specifically working for the queen, that are going around to
plague doctor people. The queen's physicians. Sorry, as they're called. So we're like, sweet, cool. So you guys are just, you do what the queen says because you support the throne and she's making you do bad stuff. Cool, good to know. And so then we leave without any
She's making
major
you do
issue.
Bad stuff. Okay.
So we leave without like going too much farther into that because it's kind of obvious that it's like, okay, that's not really what we're looking for. It doesn't feel like it would be kind of weird for this cult of an undead goddess to be under the noses and making the Temple of Asmodeus do things, right?
Yeah.
So we feel like it's probably separate, but that they're still just working for the queen, just like everything else is. So we go, okay, well that's not what we were hoping for. So then we decided the next avenue that we're going to look into out of the three that we had today is to go see what's going on at the Gray Quarter, or the Gray, it's just called the Gray, but it's the graveyards of the city, because we've been hearing more about undead cropping up more and more there.
That necromancer that could have gotten away from you all.
Yeah, and so the last time
didn't really get away, just wasn't there.
Yeah, the last time we were there, we were chasing after a necromancer that was in the tunnels under the Gray in the catacombs. That was Rolf Lamb. We didn't find him, but we stopped some other threats and got our friends friend's body back.
Yeah.
So we decide, okay, well, undead seem to be cropping up again, so we'll go check there. Maybe he's gone back to his old haunts, and there'll be something there for us to look into Rolf Lamb and what he's doing now, because that's one of the other big players, it seems, in everything that's going on. And so, like, we're kind of thinking, like, Necromancer, Cult of Urgathoa, they're probably working together. If not one and the same thing. So,
okay.
We head there, and we get to the kind of like the gates, which is basically the Temple of Pharasma. Pharasma being, I think I explained this last time, but Pharasma being the goddess of like ushering dead spirits onto the next life. Basically, hates undeath, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So we go there and we get to the gates and they're kind of shut, and they're like, we're not really letting people in because it's kind of crazy back there. And so we talk to the guard, and again, we do some persuading to get them to kind of explain a little more to us because, you know, we were here before. We've already helped you guys out. Go ask your high priestess. She's talked to us. She said we could help if you guys need help. And so he kind of gives in, and he tells us that there's a lot of undead cropping up, but it doesn't seem like it's actually the work of like a necromancer in the gray. What it seems to be is that they've had to dig new pits for all the dead. From Bloodvale.
Yeah.
New mass graves that they're having to dig and dump these bodies into. And a couple of these mass graves that they've dug have opened up deeper pits that just had cursed dead in them already, possibly from the necromancer before, possibly just as a cause of nefarious creatures and magics in the area. And they said that, you know, we don't necessarily think there's like one person that it's coming from because they're closed loops. Like, it's just, we opened a pocket of dead that have become ghouls and they started coming out. And so we're just fighting them off.
Could just kind of be some cursed land or something.
Yeah. Okay. And so we were like, okay. And he was like, you want to help? And we're like, we're a little busy.
Like, you guys want some gold? Like,
and he was like, from what I remember, they were like, we've kind of got it handled. Like, it's just kind of a constant. It's like a leaky faucet, basically. We're just kind of stifling these little breakouts as they happen. But it's not a huge deal. And so we're like, okay, well, that also doesn't give us anything. So we're like, well, okay, so the third thing has to be it, right? And the third thing is we want to go and just directly investigate the main place of the Queen's Physicians. Which is basically a clinic that they've set up in sort of the warehouse district of the city. They've kind of taken a warehouse and a bit like a real big building, big open warehouse building, and kind of repurposed it to be a clinic so that if you don't want to go to the churches or they're like pushing people away and you have nowhere else to go, you can go there and you can, one, aid in their research, and two, they'll also help you and try and cure you with more naturalistic means, less divine means.
Yeah. The natural remedies, if you will.
Sure.
Some cough medicine.
And so we're like, okay, well, we'll go there, we'll check it out, but we're not just gonna walk in. Like, they kind of know us already. And we kind of want to figure out some information without, like, if we have to run back in there later, we don't want them to be like, it's you.
Yeah.
And we're also trying not to, like, just jump into a beehive and start a fight, you know?
Right.
So Squish and Cal decide, okay, we'll disguise ourselves and pretend to be sick and go into the hospital.
Oh, lovely. Okay. Yay. This is D&D. I'm here for it.
Hey, Campaign 2 Critical Role listeners, this sounding familiar at all?
Yeah. I started thinking a little bit about that.
Doesn't go much better.
I love it.
We go, okay, well, here's what we'll do. Squish is like, I've got makeup. I'll just, I'll make some boils on my neck and make it look like I've got a rash, and I'll go in and cough and pretend to be sick. And I'm like, okay, so I have what's the spell? Alter Self.
Okay.
Which is great for stuff like this because it's not disguise self where it's like an illusion over you. Alter Self is an actual physical change. So if you like create big gnarly scars or like rashes on your skin and they feel them, it feels real. It's not just
interesting.
It's not just an
illusion. I don't know
illusion.
if I'm familiar with it. Is this a Pathfinder or is this in D&D?
Alter Self?
Yeah.
No, it's D&D. Yeah.
It's in D&D. Oh man.
Classic second level.
Is it necromancy?
No, it's alteration. Not alteration. Transmutation, I believe.
Transmutation? Yes. Okay.
I went Skyrim there for a second.
No, you're totally fine. Interesting.
Yeah, it's
okay. That's really cool.
It's very interesting because a lot of people only recognize it for what its first half says, which is like you can give yourself gills. So you can have like a swimming speed and breathe underwater, or you can give yourself claws and fangs to give yourself like an attack, or you can just physically change your body into whatever you want. Any race, as long as it's humanoid and the same size as you. You can change your you can change your sex, you can change your race, you can change your eye color, hair color, whatever you want. You can add stuff, change stuff, whatever. So it's like it's basically disguise self, but better because it's physical. It's an actual physical change.
Right. Is it a higher spell level?
I think it's second level.
Second level. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
And it only lasts an hour. And it is concentration, I believe. I don't know if disguise self is concentration.
Okay. I don't believe it is, but yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay.
So super useful if you're going into a position where you might get like inspected, right? So that's what Cal was thinking. So we go in, we both pretend to be sick. We kind of enter separately. We're also disguised. We don't look like ourselves much.
Yeah. Okay.
We enter separately to seem like we're not like together or anything. And we go in here and we enter the front office and it just looks like an urgent care, basically. There's like a small front office with a bunch of chairs, and a bunch of sick people waiting to be taken back. There's a lady at a front desk who's got a big list of names, and you get there and you check in, and she says, okay, cool. You got about this long to wait. I'll call your name when it's time for you to go back. And then
hospital settings.
Off to the side, there's like a big leather, like heavy leather curtain that's like, it's leather, so it's heavy and it doesn't just like blow around to kind of separate the waiting room from the actual clinic itself. This front room's pretty small and this building is huge. So we're like, okay, well, the clinic's got to be big behind there. So we both put our names in, we both sit down. And we're just kind of waiting. There's like 8 other people in there, I think, 6 or 8 other people. And it's taking a long time for each person to get taken back. Which is unfortunate for Cal because he doesn't have... He's only got an hour, and he can't recast the spell today. Because at this point, I think I only had 2 second level slots. And I had already used another one. And so we're waiting, and it's like a half hour goes by, and only 2 people have gone back. And we're like, this might not work out. And so Cal makes kind of a big huff about being like, ugh, this is taking too long. I'm just going to go to a temple. And he gets up and leaves.
Okay.
Squish does not. Squish stays.
Okay.
And he's like, I don't got a time limit. I'll wait here. And so we wait and we wait and we wait. Cal goes and meets back up with everyone else outside. I think we sent Squish a message like, warn us if something happens. Okay. And so we're kind of waiting like 2 blocks away, watching the door. And something we're noticing outside is, it seems like there's a lot of people going in and not really anyone ever coming back out.
Okay.
The only thing we ever see come back out is like a patrol of like 3 physicians and a gray maiden going out to do their rounds, kind of a thing.
Okay. Okay.
And so we're like, okay, well, at least we know this is like where they are. This is their headquarters. They don't have like a headquarters, like a barracks somewhere else. Like they're here.
This is their headquarters. Like, oh no vibes. Like, oh dear. Okay.
And so Squish, he waits and waits and waits, and finally, like, I think it's like an hour and a half later,
okay,
he gets told to go back, and he passes the leather curtain, and immediately is in a huge room with just cots wall to wall, with just small little walkways in between them, and there's like 30-40 people in these cots, all sick, all kind of writhing and not feeling good, and like being looked over by doctors. And then Squish, like for his initial assessment, is taken back to like one of the side rooms so that they can like check him and see how sick he is, what kind of treatment he needs, all that stuff.
Oh no.
Lots of quotation marks here.
Yeah.
Treatment.
That's what I've been noticing. Oh, Kurtis. Yeah, this is giving me some like, oh no, like,
yeah, it's like into the lion's den.
Oh dear. Okay. I feel like what was Josh doing right here? Was he like
just
trying to commit to this point, or is he like
being typical gnome bard? Just laughing and
whatever
and playing it up and being as loud as he can so that people just try and like ignore him because of how loud he is. So he gets taken into this back room and he's kind of like looking around, checking things. He sees there's a couple of other like corridors and hallways, but he can pretty much see almost all the way to the back of the place. And he's like, there's not many other places to go. And so the doctor comes in, checks him, starts looking at him. And Squish did not roll great on his disguise check. And the doctor kind of turns his head one way because he's got like a rash under his neck, right? That he like painted on. He turns his head one way, turns his head the other way. And he says like, I think I can fix your problem. And he takes a cloth and just wipes away the paint. And he's like, okay, you should leave. And Squish is like, cool, yep. Hops up, starts heading out of there. He comes back out, meets up with us, and he's like, I'm gonna go back in. And he turns himself invisible and goes back in.
Okay.
So he goes back in.
I have to ask this, Curtis. I have to ask this. Why didn't he start with that? Was it just like the plan of like that's a backup plan?
The point for us going in was like, well, because the point for us going in was like checking to see what they're doing. Like we want to see how they're treating people, what's going on. We wanted to go through the motions of actually being a sick person to see what they're doing
just
to
in
people.
Case. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I just had to ask. Yeah.
There wasn't much of a plan to get out, I will say. So if we did get like admitted, there wasn't much of a plan for getting out. We forgot about that part.
You get through the curtain and immediately guards are just like spears right to the gut type of thing.
Yeah, exactly right.
Man.
So he goes back in. We discussed for a little while, and he's like, "Oh, I'll go check. I'll be real fast. I'll go in. I'll look around. I'll get right back out." So he goes back in, invisible, starts looking around, and he gets back through the into the back room, and he starts checking out the other rooms that are in the place there to try and see if there's like an upstairs or like stairs that go down to lead to more stuff, because from what we've seen, there's not nearly enough living space here to have all of the doctors and some Grey Maidens here along with the patients. Right. But we've seen them come out. So he checks out some of the doors. He finds out that, okay, this place was like a shipping place before this, because he finds like a back storage room that had like animal cages and stuff like that. And some like exotic fruits, like exotic boxes for like shipping stuff. And so we're like, okay, so that it was like a shipping place before this. Gotcha. But it was all old and like still smelled bad, but didn't have anything that looked like it had been used recently. But what he does eventually find is that there are other places to go. There is an upstairs in the back, but as he's trying to explore that, somebody notices him in a way. He's too loud, or he bumps into somebody or something. I don't remember the exact details. Somebody notices him, but he's still invisible, so they don't know who it is. They don't know what they're doing. There's someone sneaking around. So he's like, shoot, I gotta go. And so he starts booking it out, and they're like throwing stuff, like shooting at him with crossbows as he's leaving. And thankfully, he never gets turned back visible again. And so he does make it out into the street, and they start coming out to try and look for him. And we're like, go. So we just kind of head out and disappear. And so we're like, okay, there's obviously more to that place. Here's the thing. We're not going to be able to just sneak in there. There's a lot of innocent people in there. And there's obviously a lot of enemies there, because as soon as he was kind of found out, a few Grey Maidens like came out and started trying to chase him down. So obviously there's guards, there's a lot of enemies, there's a lot of innocent people. We don't want to just run in there bows blazing.
And it just started
magic
blasting.
blazing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so we're like, okay, so what are we going to do? And eventually what we decide is that we're going to go the diplomatic route. We decide that what we're going to do is Dr. Rainer de Valos, who we met a long time ago after we came back into the city, who is basically the head doctor of the Queen's physicians. We decide we're going to ask for a meeting with him, because we've got some information we want to let him know about the disease. We're trying to help. And we'd like to meet with him and talk to him. And so that's what we do. We go back into the clinic all together. We tell them, hey, we're the Trouble Seekers. We met Dr. de Valos. We'd like to speak with him. Can you let him know we want to talk to him? We've got information. And we do. We get seen. Eventually, a Grey Maiden comes and escorts us to the back of the place.
First interaction with a Grey Maiden, too.
Well, we didn't talk to the Grey Maiden.
I know you've seen them before, but
first, like, face-to-face.
Up close.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. Was it a person?
Well,
Did you check if it was a humanoid?
We did. There's actually 2 times we've been face-to-face with one before. One was when we were leaving the city way back when.
Oh, that's right.
There was one at the gates.
Yes, okay.
We didn't really like interact though. And then the other time was there was one at the checkpoint to head into Old Corvosa.
Yes, okay.
So they were just kind of guards at that point. So we didn't really talk to them or anything, but we did get close. So this Grey Maiden takes us back and takes us up the stairs. And when we get up there, we find Dr. de Valos, who is kind of waiting to speak with us with his little contingent of guards. It's like him and like 2 Grey Maidens that he's flanked by, and then the 1 Grey Maiden that like brought us up. we tell him we want to talk to him, and we've got a conversation to start. So I think I'm going to call it there because
come back at the conversation.
Things pick up pretty quickly here.
Wow.
Things go from diplomatic to not very diplomatic pretty quickly.
Wow.
So we'll get into that next time. I don't remember the fine details of the conversation, and I want to make sure I talk about that because it gets pretty crazy. So this is where like the end game of this chapter starts, and we start going, oh crap, and like basically falling down the rabbit hole here. So it gets real good.
That's so fun. Okay, so I love the fact that you guys decided to do the diplomatic route. Very, very different. Also kind of cool that you guys were like, hey, we did meet him before. Let's just go see if we can talk to him.
Yeah, and that was I think the reason we said that was because when we did first meet him, he met all of us, shook our hands, and was like, yeah, if you need anything, you need treatment, if you have information on the sickness, feel free to come by and talk to me, kind of a thing. And so we were like, okay, we'll just take him up on that. Enough trying to be sneaky. Let's just go talk to him.
I like it.
Yeah.
Now, I do want to ask Kurtis, I'm very curious to, if even if it's at this point in the campaign, not where we left off today, but maybe later on, is there any reason why you guys have not been infected by the plague? Is it just part of the adventure? Do you know if you guys were rolling con saves behind?
A few of us have.
Was rolling con saves?
A few of us have gotten sick at this point. I think.
Oh, okay.
But the nice thing is we have a cleric.
Right.
So basically, what's been happening is basically after Old Corvosa, every time we've rested, the next time we wake up, Dip rolls something to see who could have been infected, and then he has those people roll a con save. And if you succeed your con save, you don't get sick. If you don't succeed your con save, you do get sick, and you wake up with signs of rash and red eyes and a cough and stuff, and it's pretty gnarly because it can also, I think every time we contract it, it lowers a mental stat and a physical stat by a d4.
Oh snap. Okay, so this is a hardcore one.
Pretty much if you get sick, it's roll 2d4 for me. All right, your first d4 was a 3, your second was a 1, your constitution goes down by 3, and your charisma. I think it was constitution and charisma. Because it was your charisma goes down because you're all full of boils and pus and your throat's messed up. People don't want to talk to you. And the constitution was you just feel awful and you're very sick. So your constitution will go down by a d4, and your charisma will go down by a d4.
Sorry to derail from where you left off. But
I haven't mentioned that much because thankfully up to this point, every morning we wake up sick. Alora's just you're good.
Yeah.
So
nice having it's one of those things where she uses second level spell slots first thing, but at least you're.
And honestly, I think up to this point here, I think only 2 of us had gotten sick up to this point.
Okay.
I don't remember who. I think it might have been Tombstone. Maybe Tombstone and Alora got sick.
Okay.
And I think Alora healed herself, and Tombstone Tombstone tried to drink the remember that fake liniment that we went and tried to Tombstone tried to drink that. And then he woke up the next day and succeeded his con save, and so wasn't sick anymore, and he was like, "Oh, well, it was the liniment. It does work, guys."
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
And so now every time anyone got sick after that, he's like, "Well, do we have any liniment left?" And we're like, "No."
Don't worry, I'll go get some more, guys.
We're like, we separated the components. It's just perfume and water. Come on, man. That's not what did it. You're just a big, strong man, and you got over it. It's so funny.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Well, thank you, Kurtis. That was super cool. Okay, so chase down some loose ends, and on the third one,
and now
stuff is going down.
We've hit the gold mine here, and we're about to start digging.
So Kurtis was also gratified that you guys got to explore every part that you needed to for this act, and now you're moving into the next act.
Well, and that's kind of how we decided it too. Was the Asmodeus thing was like, we don't really feel like that's connected, but it's weird enough that we should go check on it.
Yeah.
So we did that. And then the gray thing was like, that's definitely something we should look at, because that might be another avenue that they're using to spread things or have a war on the city. So we should go check that. But the one we were all pretty sure was going to give us some good answers and give us some things that we need to find was the clinic.
Okay.
I'm struggling to remember the name of it. Because the name of I want to talk about the name of it because it ends up being one of those things that, like, when you first hear it, you're like, oh yeah, that sounds like a hospital, cool. And then once we're out of there, it's like, oh,
it's one of those things that's part of the plot a little bit.
It's like a reveal a little bit once you actually recognize. Like, it's one of those things that's like, it was in our face the whole time. So, but I'll mention it.
Well, that'll be fun that'll be fun to come back on for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. Well, thank you all so much for watching listening to the Backyard Tabletop.
Consuming the Backyard Tabletop.
Thank you for your consumption. I have been Jake.
That's the best way to sign off on a video ever. My name's Kurtis, and thank you for your consumption.
From here on, that's our outro now, I guess.
Thank you for your consumption. That's so funny.
You know what? That's the secret word for today.
Consumption?
Should it be consumption?
Yes. Absolutely.
Consumption.
That's like how an alien would sign off if they were trying to emulate humans but didn't quite understand the language.
It kind of means the same thing.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Oh man. Well, next time when we come back, we will be jumping back to the Witch's Omen for us to see what the dungeon is all about, because we had gotten to the maiden statue, and there is going to be some stuff that goes down for us to be able to enter this place. So
yeah, man. We might chat.
That'll be next time.
We might chat a little bit about Phandelver and Below.
Yes, we're going to definitely bring that back. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe next time, because by the time we start next time, I should have a session 0 under my belt and have all the characters figured out, so maybe we can talk about adventure hooks and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll definitely start reading it a little bit more than just the summaries of everything, for sure. And probably go look at the original and do some comparing. I like it a lot. All right. Well, we will see you next time. Thank you so much for your consumption.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.